The glitz and glamour of high school prom is supposed to be a night of celebration, but for 3 teenage cheerleaders, their desperate attempts to keep their pregnancies hidden turned into horrifying crimes. Brooke Skylar Richardson, Alexee Trevizo, and Jessica Coleman each carried their secret to term, only to commit the unthinkable in their frantic bids to maintain their perfect teenage lives. Brooke Skylar Richardson was the picture-perfect high school senior in a small Ohio town, but when she gave birth in secret and buried her newborn in the backyard, the shocking details of her story unraveled in court. Alexee Trevizo, an 18-year-old from New Mexico, left hospital staff stunned when they discovered her baby's lifeless body in a trash bag after she had quietly delivered it in a bathroom. And years before them, Jessica Coleman carried a dark burden for nearly a decade, hiding the truth about her baby's brutal fate until guilt finally forced her to confess. They saw murder as their only way out. But were these girls cold-blooded killers or victims of their own circumstances? Let's keep watching to find out. A quiet, tight-knit community of just 5,000 residents, Carlisle was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. But Skylar had always been obsessed with her weight. From the time she was a little girl, she struggled with body dysmorphia and an eating disorder, something her parents had fought for years to help her manage. Her small frame and constant dieting had made her an ideal flyer on the cheerleading squad, but behind her bright smile, she was extremely insecure about her body. In April 2017, just days after her 18th birthday, Skylar's mother scheduled an appointment for her at the gynecologist's office. Kim Richardson had always been careful about her daughter's health, and since Skylar had recently started dating a new boy, her mother wanted to put her on birth control. But when Skylar came out of the doctor's office that day, she was in tears. Her mother assumed it was just nerves from her first gynecological visit. What Kim didn't know was that the doctor had just told her daughter she was pregnant. Skylar wasn't just a few weeks or months along. She was already 8 months pregnant. Skylar begged the doctor not to tell anyone. She was overwhelmed, terrified, and completely unprepared for the reality of what was happening inside her own body. She went home that day and said nothing to anyone. For the next few weeks, Skylar carried on as if nothing had changed. She continued to go to school, she went to track practice, and on May 5th, 2017, she attended prom wearing the same fitted gown she had bought back in February. Skylar's world came crashing down. She gave birth alone in her bathroom. What exactly happened next may never be fully revealed. While Skylar has told her version of events, many people have questioned the truth of it. According to Skylar, the birth happened suddenly. She claimed that when the baby, a little girl she later named Annabelle, was born, she wasn't breathing and had no heartbeat. Skylar panicked. She was too ashamed, too scared to wake her parents, and too afraid to ask for help. She said she held Annabelle in her arms for a few minutes, then wrapped her in a towel, carried her downstairs, and buried her in the backyard under the moonlight. No one in her house, not her parents, not her brother, heard a sound. For the next 2 months, Skylar lived her life as if nothing had happened, but then the police came knocking. In July 2017, the Richardson family received a shocking visit from law enforcement. A doctor's office had called the police with an alarming report. They said a patient had admitted to delivering a baby at home and burying it in her backyard. When detectives asked Skylar's father, Scott Richardson, to bring his daughter to the police station, he complied, believing this was just a routine conversation, but it was anything but. Inside the interrogation room, Skylar sat alone, separated from her parents, as detectives read her rights and began questioning her. The entire conversation was recorded.
We got a call from the doctor's office. Okay, and according to them, on April 26th, you found out you were pregnant.
At first, Skylar insisted her baby was stillborn.
You went back to that doctor's office?
And I told her what had happened. That I had to have the baby, and it wasn't alive. I didn't kill him, though.
But as detectives pushed harder, they began suggesting a different narrative, one that would later shape the entire trial. They suggested that she had tried to the baby. To that, she responded, maybe. Defense attorneys would later claim that Skylar had been confused and under intense pressure at the time that she was being questioned by the cops. She also didn't have a lawyer with her. This could have definitely affected how she chose to answer their questions. The cops would eventually update Skylar's parents on what was going on and allow them to come in to see her. Prosecution painted her as a self-obsessed teenager who had killed her newborn baby just to preserve her perfect life. Tabloids plastered her cheerleading photos next to the words, "baby killer." Her family became prisoners in their own home, terrified to leave as reporters and strangers stalked them online. The defense argued that Skylar had been coerced into confessing to something she never did. When the controversial case was finally placed into the hands of the jury, they took only 4 hours to deliberate before coming to a unanimous decision.
We, the The jury in the above captioned case find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of the offense of aggravated murder.
Jessica Coleman had everything a teenage girl could dream of, including popularity, intelligence, and talent in sports. She was a star cheerleader, excelling both in the classroom and on the field. But at just 15 years old, her perfect life took a devastating turn when she discovered she was pregnant by her older boyfriend, Tom, a well-known basketball player at their school. Terrified of what her parents would say, and dreading the judgment of her classmates, Jessica made a chilling decision. She would keep her pregnancy a secret from everyone except her boyfriend. The young couple resorted to extreme measures to ensure no one found out. Her eating disorder made things even easier to conceal because she barely gained any weight. To the outside world, she was just another normal high school student. One seemingly ordinary day, in February 1999, while at school, Jessica began experiencing severe cramps. She called her mother, who assumed it was just menstrual pain, and dropped her off at home before heading back to work. But these weren't just cramps. Jessica was in labor. Alone in the bathroom, she struggled through excruciating pain, and then, in a terrifying instant, her baby was born. He slipped out and landed in the toilet.
After being checked on a few times by my mom, I felt like I needed to use the restroom, and when I went to push, it's as if he fell out of the toilet.
Jessica, weak from blood loss, tried to stand up but collapsed, falling onto her newborn son. She blacked out. When she finally regained consciousness, she saw his body beneath her. Desperate, she cleaned him up, cut the umbilical cord with a hair barrette, and waited for any sign of life. But the baby never moved. Jessica wasn't sure if he had been stillborn or if she had accidentally smothered him. Panicked and in shock, she hid his body in her bedroom closet and walked downstairs to have dinner with her family as if nothing had happened. After dinner, Jessica returned to her room, but instead of seeking help, she made a disturbing choice.
As I'm sitting there with him, I just kept thinking to myself, what if he is in pain right now? What if I just don't know? And I just felt that I needed to take away his pain.
She grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed her newborn son in the chest. The next day, Jessica called Tom, who had since gone to college, and told him everything. He rushed over as soon as he could. Together, they placed the baby's body into a duffel bag, weighed it down with rocks, and drove to a flooded quarry a few miles away. They threw the bag into the water, believing their secret would be buried forever. For 6 months, no one knew what had happened. But then, a diver stumbled upon the duffel bag, and the gruesome discovery sent shockwaves through their small Ohio town. Inside was the tiny, lifeless body of a newborn. The community was horrified.
Newborn boy found stabbed in duffel bag in quarry. The community named this baby Baby Boy Hope, and they held a funeral, and they buried him in a local cemetery.
But shockingly, the baby was not traced back to Jessica, and her secret remained safe. Years later, Jessica found herself in a serious relationship with a new man. One night, while drinking at a bar, Matt brought up marriage and their future together. Jessica realized that she couldn't start a family with this man without telling him her secret. She broke down and told him everything. What she didn't realize was that someone overheard their conversation. That person went straight to the cops. Both Jessica and Tom were arrested and interrogated. Under the pressure, they finally confessed. Jessica, despite being a minor at the time of the crime, was tried as an adult. Since the coroner couldn't determine the exact cause of the baby's death, she avoided a murder charge and instead pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison and has since been released. The case of Alexee Trevizo is one that is deeply disturbing and incredibly controversial. It is also still ongoing. In January of 2023, 19-year-old Alexee Trevizo arrived at a hospital in New Mexico with her mother, complaining of severe back pain. Her mother didn't seem to be overly concerned, acknowledging that Alexee was a very active teen who competed on her high school's cheerleading squad and often experienced sore muscles. But she would soon discover that her daughter's discomfort was a result of something entirely different. As part of routine testing, Alexee was given a pregnancy test. Shockingly, the test came back positive. Alexee insisted that there had to be some sort of mistake and that it was impossible she could be pregnant because she had never had sex before. The doctors were obviously skeptical about this, so they continued with the testing. But just moments later, Alexee Trevizo got up to go to the bathroom.
Hospital surveillance video shows Trevizo leave her patient room at 1:38 a.m., waddling toward the bathroom while clutching her back. Trevizo remains in the bathroom for 19 minutes as multiple people check on her.
When Alexee finally did come out, the bathroom was supposedly a total mess with blood splattered everywhere. But the most shocking thing was what a staff member would discover inside of the bathroom. It was a newborn baby boy laid in a plastic bag and placed in the bottom of the trash can. Horrified, the hospital staff realized that when Alexee was in the bathroom all of that time, she must have given birth. Instead of telling someone, she threw the baby away and hoped that nobody would notice. At that point, they called the cops.
She put the baby in the trash can, and then she put another clean liner over the top of it. So when they looked in there, there was no trash in there, but it's underneath the clean bag. The baby's dead. Okay, we have him in trauma too, but she killed the kid.
What happens next is captured on body cameras as law enforcement enters the room where Alexee and her mother are waiting. A doctor explains to them why the cops are there, breaking the shocking news to Alexee's mother for the first time.
Sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like we tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved.
Nothing was crying. It came out with nothing.
Alexee's mother seemed to be in a state of shock and still not fully processing what the doctors were telling her.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. I'm starting freaking out at me and I didn't know what to do.
Alexee immediately began crying and breaking down, admitting that she had the baby and panicked, not knowing what to do with it. Meanwhile, the cops continued their investigation. They identified Alexee's boyfriend, identifying him as the child's father. He and his mother came to the hospital and spoke to the cops. He told them that Alexee had never told him that she was pregnant and that he had no idea.
And then last night, we're on the phone together and she said her hips were hurting bad. I said, ask her if anything else is hurting. And she said just everything. And she went to sleep.
But she's a cheerleader too, so she's big in cheers. They have cheer competition. She works out. I mean,
and she's been active this whole time?
Yeah, she's been active this whole time.
What is particularly shocking about this case is that Alexee and her boyfriend had been together for 2 years, and yet he claimed he didn't know his girlfriend was 9 months pregnant with his child. But it wasn't just him that was supposedly in the dark. No one else seemed to know about the pregnancy either, not her parents, and not even her closest friends. This seems pretty unbelievable, especially considering the fact that her form-fitting cheerleading outfit would have shown her growing belly.
Check out this video of Alexee performing on her high school cheerleading squad less than 3 weeks before she gave birth. Cops say that's a baby bump showing, and she must have known she was pregnant.
Ultimately, Alexee was charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence in the death of her son, whom she later named Alex Fierro. Months after the tragedy, the cops arrived at Alexee's home to take her to jail. Her mother became hostile and uncooperative.
What is she under arrest for?
She is a warrant for arrest. Okay?
For what?
That's all I'm going to tell you. Okay?
What do you mean that's all you're going to tell me?
Strangely, Alexee seemed calm as she was placed into handcuffs and led into a cop car. It was as if she had been expecting this and had time to prepare herself. Alexee only spent a short time behind bars before the judge ultimately made the decision to set her bond at $100,000. Her parents quickly paid the bond, and she was released. This was only the beginning of a very controversial case, with many believing that considering she was facing murder charges, she should have to stay behind bars while awaiting trial. Since she's been out, Alexee seems to have been trying to live as normal of a life as possible. She's been permitted to attend college classes and work towards her bachelor's degree. She cannot leave her home beyond the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. daily and must attend weekly counseling sessions. Alexee was supposed to have faced trial by now, but due to constant delays in court proceedings, it has been postponed. As the legal process continues, it appears less and less likely that Alexee will end up facing justice for the alleged murder of her son. This is because a judge recently ruled that the confession that Alexee made to the cops in the hospital room cannot be used against her because it violates her rights and her private health information. This is a major win for her defense.
The judge for the New Mexico 5th Judicial District Court filed orders in favor of Trevizo's defense, who argued comments Trevizo was accused of making in front of hospital staff, as well as video footage of her taken inside of the hospital room, could not be used in court, as according to them, it was in violation of HIPAA.
This means that prosecutors cannot use anything that Alexee said to law enforcement while she was hospitalized against her. All that evidence must be tossed out. While only time will tell what ends up happening, there is a good chance that Alexee could face no jail time at all. These cases expose a very disturbing reality. Some young women are so desperate to protect their reputations that they are willing to resort to unthinkable actions. Whether driven by fear, denial, or sheer panic, their choices ended innocent lives and shattered their own futures. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below.